Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss this test number 12 of your YTS 2023, and this is the second test of your world history. Along with this test, of course, as usual, I'll also cover one topic which have been asked in this test, and I have chosen this topic of fascism and Nazism, or this whole totalitarian form of government which was established in Europe as well as in Asia, in Japan, between these two world wars. So that topic we will discuss in detail. उसके अलावा we will discuss the questions, how we should approach, what kind of introduction we should, or how we can write a good introduction. All of the things we will see one by one. Fine. So let's see the first question. The year 1848 can be described as a turning point in the European history when Europe failed to turn. I hope you guys understood the demand of the question. It is talking about the revolution of 1848. Let's see it, and please focus. It was a turning point in the history. Turning point in the European history means it was it was going to bring a drastic change. So we should see what was the previous condition and what was the drastic change it was going to bring. And the second option, the second part of the answer will be when Europe failed to turn. Why the revolution of 1848 failed or could not succeed. So let's see what kind of things we should discuss in this question. So it's primarily related to your revolution of 1848. Introduction में, since the question says कि we are going to, or this Europe was going to turn, means something was going to change. So in introduction itself you can give the background that what was going to change between your 1815 or from your 1815, that is after this fall of Napoleon Bonaparte, we see that a Metternich system was established in France, which was visible in your Congress of Vienna and later on in your Concert of Europe and all. And it was based on the principle of conservatism. So, principle of conservatism. So, this you can write as an introduction. One way of writing a good introduction, or otherwise you can write an introduction in the form of that revolution of 1848, which started in France in February 1848, soon engulfed all of the regions of Europe. So that kind of generic introduction or introduction through background. This point you can give that post 1815 period is dominated by the Metternich system, which clearly is based on the principle of conservatism. And the revolution of 1848 was an attempt to change this system. That can be a good introduction. Then move to the body part. What was, or say in your body section you can write it was going to turn. So you should give the examples of revolution and what are the changes or what are the achievements during the initial phase of the revolution. Say for example, it started in France. Definitely it led to establishment of your what kind of rule. क्योंकि अगर change चाहिए तो we and always try to focus on the ideological aspect, background. That is the thing. So change is basically from the principle of conservatism to this principle of liberalism and nationalism. These are the two major principles which were behind this all revolutions of your 19th century, primarily 1830s and 1848. So that you should mention, and then you should write that France may this led to the establishment of your Second Republic. Then in your Austria, it ended the Metternich rule, or Metternich was exiled, na? He was exiled, and this led to the end of this whole Metternich system. This was the whole Metternich system. This was the major thing which was achieved. So it looked like that the whole old conservative order is going to end. Even a success was seen in your Germany, where we have this establishment of Frankfurt Parliament. है ना? So all of this is suggesting that we were on the verge of, or the Europeans were on the verge of seeing that turnover from conservatism to your liberalism and nationalism, or the triumph of these two principles. But those things were not achieved, that you should write in the second part of the body. But it failed. Why failed? Because we find that the Frankfurt Parliament could not succeed. In France, the Republic, Second Republic, was overthrown by your, again, monarchical form of government established under this Louis Bonaparte, and this led to the establishment of a second monarchy. So that again was against the principle of your liberalism to some extent. So this you should write in your second part of the body. Even in Austria, with the support of Russia, they suppressed those revolutionary forces. So initially what looked like it did not happen, it did not materialize, and therefore Europe failed to turn and had to wait to some few more years for the success of, or the end of, this old order and the success of these forces of your nationalism and your liberalism, the establishment of democracy. But definitely in the concluding remarks, you can give one more point, that it definitely played an important role in the unification of your Germany particularly. So by highlighting these things, and please focus on the important aspect which you should mention definitely, that is the Metternich system, that is your principle of conservatism, the principle of liberalism or democracy, the principle of your nationalism. Unless and until you use these keywords, you use these subject language, your answer lacks value. So, and this is the bigger picture. Always focus on that bigger picture. It will help you to write a good answer. And so I hope it's clear, the first question. Then let's move to the second question. And what the second question reads: how far the policy of appeasement of Britain is responsible for the rise of Hitler? Of course, we know that rise of Hitler led to that was one of the reasons for your Second World War. So what are the reasons for the rise of Hitler becomes a important subject of study, and scholars have done that. And one of the factors which have been cited or given by the scholars is that it is the appeasement policy of the Britain which led to, or which supported this rise. Not only was the only factor, but definitely supported the rise of Hitler. So a better introduction क्या होगा? एक अच्छा introduction in this, I always say, if you get any question where you have some technical word which you can define, then introduce with that definition itself. So in this policy of appeasement, it's a thing which need elaboration. So it's good if you elaborate this in introduction itself. So policy of appeasement is the term used for the British policies followed by who was the Prime Minister? Chamberlain was the Prime Minister during that time. So regarding your Germany, which was motivated by the economic as well as political motives of Europe, or motives of Britain. So that can be a good introduction. Introduce with your policy of appeasement, and then write how far the policy of appeasement. So briefly, after this introduction, briefly describe the factors which led to this, that economic factor and political factor, in one small paragraph. Then move to your impact. That is the major part of the answer. That impact which led to your or which impact of this policy of appeasement which supported your rise of Hitler. So policy of appeasement definition in intro. Policy of appeasement, that is your definition. That can be a good intro. Then in body part, factors, very brief. Then impact, you should elaborate upon the impact. And what is the impact of this? That because of this, there was no check on the naked expansionist policy of the Germany or Hitler. And before writing this impact, you should also give the examples where this policy of appeasement was seen. So in this first paragraph itself, you should write that the policy of appeasement which was visible in, say, in the Spanish War of 1936. Spanish War of 1936, when the counter revolution in Spain, which was supported by Germany and Italy, was not opposed by Britain. So that point you should write, Spanish War. Then you should also write the point related to your this invasion of Czechoslovakia and your annexation of Sudeten land. Annexation of the Sudeten land, and through this, and this was accepted by European powers, especially Britain, under this Munich Pact. So this Munich Pact of 1938, again a second example of your policy of appeasement of Britain. So these examples you should give, and then write the impact that all of this led to or gave a free hand to Hitler for his naked expansionist policy, which ultimately led to the attack on Poland, which marks the end of this policy of appeasement and the beginning of your Second World War. That can be a good conclusion or a better conclusion for this. So that is clear. So conclusion, we will conclude with this attack on Poland and start of your First World War. Next, Second World War. Next one, question is, nationalism and chauvinism were the important forces which led to the First World War. Discuss. Nationalism and chauvinism. Please remember this two terms. So this question is directly related to the causes of First World War. We can easily understand. And nationalism and chauvinism, it's two things, means one term indicates the positive aspect, whereas the second term, chauvinism, reflects the negative aspect, or it shows the extreme nationalism or militant nationalism, which was a characteristic feature of the period between 1878, or you can say this period after this unification, 1871 to 1914. We see this as a phase of your militant nationalism. So this chauvinism is nothing but the militant nationalism that you need to highlight, and militant nationalism में examples के साथ you need to give the examples also. So militant nationalism, this or chauvinism. So militant nationalism can be seen in which areas, you can say. It can be seen in the race for colonies. It can also be seen in your arms race, and you can give the examples like for race of colonies ultimately led to one of the major crisis, which is a kind of major crisis just before your start of First World War. You can give the example of your Moroccan crisis. Moroccan crisis. Always give example to support your point. Otherwise, your answer won't be complete. Your points won't be authenticated, and therefore your answer is not that good. Fine. You can only get average marks for answer without example, without those conceptual background. Always focus on those things. Then Moroccan crisis here you can write. Then later on in the field of nationalism, nationalism, as I have already told you, it is more positive. It has more positive connotation. So let's see how this nationalism or led to this First World War. Since it is a positive connotation, and please remember, this whole principle of nationalism and democracy, not democracy but nationalism for sure, has been settled in Western Europe, by the time of 1871. Nationalism settle हो गया है, unification of Germany हो चुका है, Italy हो चुका है, all the geographical boundaries of Western Europe are settled. तो वहां पे the forces of nationalism are not playing a prominent role, but when we enter into the Eastern Europe, we find that the forces of nationalism are actually arousing, actually growing, and therefore the Eastern Question or the Ottoman Empire becomes the region where we find that this force of nationalism is at peak, and yahan se we can jump to, or we can relate this as a cause of your First World War. So Ottoman Empire decline pe tha, and we already see there are Eastern European nations who wanted to united, or who wanted to first attain their independence from this Ottoman rule. At the same time, there was also a movement called Greater Serbia movement, where all the Slavs want to unite as a one nation under the leadership of Serbia with the support of Russia. So there in your Balkan region, primarily in Balkan region, you need to discuss this the forces of nationalism. Say for example, your Bosnian crisis. When Bosnia and Herzegovina was annexed by your Austria, then we see a kind of anti-Austrian feeling among those Bosnian people, mainly the Slavs of Bosnia, and therefore the Slavs were supported by Serbia, and this crisis even increased the discontent between Serbia and Austria. Please focus on these names. These are the two forces or the two nations among which this Second World War started. You can say it was the this murder of your Archduke Francis Ferdinand. Na? He was an Austrian Archduke and Duke. Na? So he was murdered by the Bosnian student in Bosnia, but Austria thought that it was done with Serbian support, and therefore held Serbia responsible, and this leads to the beginning of your First World War. So this Bosnian crisis increased the rift, you should mention, again link it to nationalism. Then we enter into the Balkan Wars of 1911 to 1913. वहाँ पे भी we need to highlight this sense of nationalism, especially it's not primarily in among those Christian dominated regions against the Turks. Primarily the First Balkan War. First Balkan War is when this Christian dominated region of Macedonia was annexed by, or was completely under the control of your Ottomans, that the Turks, and when the Turks tried to adopted the policy of Turkification of this region, it led to a revolt in this region and led to the Balkan Wars. So again, a nationalistic feeling hai iske piche. So that you should give and link this whole Balkan War, especially the First Balkan War, with the feeling of or nationalism. Then you should also write, ye dono factors ho gaye, then you should also write in this Balkan region that it was not only this feature, but your anti-Russian policies, you can say, of Britain. Britain did not wanted or was apprehensive of your expansion of Russia in this region, and therefore did not supported this whole a kind of this not tried to solve this problem in the Balkan region, and thus became a major cause for your First World War. And when you read the question says discuss. The command word is discuss. So you can mention that under these, and of course under because of these two major principles, we see the system of alliance formation, the system of arm race, the whole thing of militant nationalism and all, and thus it provides the thus it leads to ignited situation in Europe, which culminates into the start of First World War in 1940. Fine. So nationalism and chauvinism difference you must know, and how you need to present. First, choose this militant nationalism or chauvinism, give the examples, then choose this nationalism, choose the area of your Balkan region, show this Bosnian crisis, highlight this First Balkan War, link it to nationalism, and then highlight that it is not only this, means because of this nationalism and chauvinism, we see the rise of or the division of Europe into two groups who are at war with each other, who are against each other, which ultimately culminates into the First World War. I hope it's clear. Then next one, no cause were more blessed in leaders of devoted patriotism and of excellent though dissimilar part. Please focus, excellent though dissimilar part, than that of Italian Risorgimento. This term Italian Risorgimento is nothing but Italian unification. Okay, so and yahan pe we need to discuss the leader's role in Italian unification, and so let's see. Of course, we know this Italian unification. Question number 4. The leaders are कौन है? Leaders में first. Italian unification कब start होता है? We all know that 1820s or 20s में, but it starts as a revolutionary movement. And every time कोई भी revolution start हो रहा है in Europe during your 1820s or 19th century, तो of course influenced by the French Revolution and all. So first, in the answer we are not required to discuss all that, but just for your information I am discussing that. First phase was definitely a secret society. In the phase of secret societies where the Carbonari society was prominent, but eventually it failed. It could not bring the desired result or unite all the Italians to win the independence and remove the control of Austria from their region. Then the phase of your mass movement start, or then comes the first major leader of Italian unification, and that is your Mazzini. So Mazzini. So here you should, when you after writing a general introduction, where you should write that the leaders, where you should mention the names of the leaders and highlight their dissimilar impact. Means they work in different, their working style, their policies were different, but with common end, with your common aim, you can say, with the common aim, and that aim is your Italian unification. So they were, this should be an introduction, and after writing that, you should move to the first subheading in body part, first subheading, that is Mazzini, and in Mazzini, you should write identification, means his contribution. You should start with the identification of the reasons for the failure of Carbonari movement, that it was not a mass movement. Therefore, he tried to make this Italian unification movement a mass movement. mass movement, and वो कैसे हुआ? Through his you can say by educating the masses about whole of this through his pamphlets and all. Then you should, and of course because of that he is also referred as the you can say soul of the movement, soul of the movement, or prophet of the movement, Mazzini. And so that part you need to discuss, and then discuss the impact of this. And this impact could be clearly seen in 1848 revolt, the work of Mazzini, which aimed to create a mass-based movement in Italy with the aim of Italian unification, the result of which could be seen in 1848 revolt, where the people of one region in Italy were fighting for the people of other region in Italy, because we know that Italy was only a geographical expression. Italy was only a geographical expression before 1871, that is, or 1870, that is your unification of Italy. So if there are different states who are fighting for each other, or the set of people living in different regions who are fighting for each other, that is what the sense of nationalism is. That is what the mass movement meant, and this was the result of your Mazzini, or contribution of your Mazzini, which you should write. Then after Mazzini, so he provided that base. He provided that base over which the other leaders like Cavour and your Garibaldi worked. So Cavour was, second we should discuss Cavour, and Cavour was the Prime Minister of Sardinia Piedmont, Sardinia, na? And Sardinia, under the leadership of Sardinia, this whole Italian unification took place. So next one is Cavour, and he is the statesman. He is the statesman of this unification, who through his not only diplomatic policy but also socio-economic policy made this Italian unification a reality. So you should elaborate on these points. Say, first, he identified the problem, and what is the problem? That unless and until we remove Austria from Italy, Italy cannot be unified. Second, if Sardinia Piedmont is to be seen as a leader in this Italian unification movement, the socio-economic condition in Sardinia Piedmont should be as a leader. Therefore, economic reforms and social reforms are required in Sardinia Piedmont. And through his policies, first socio-economic policies, he created or made Sardinia a true leader, and thus acceptance of her leadership was never questioned. Second, to remove Austrian influence, he knew that Sardinia Piedmont or this whole Italy is not that powerful which can easily win a war against Austria, which was a powerful nation in your 19th century, and therefore he knew that unless and until I get the support of other major power of Europe, I cannot defeat Austria. So he used his diplomatic skills to win that support. और कैसे किया वो diplomatic skills, कब use करते हैं? So that is the important points which you should mention. Say Italy participated in your Crimean War against Russia जिसमें इसका कोई direct role नहीं था, but then also Italy participated in it just to win a seat in your Paris Peace Conference, or your peace conference after your Crimean War. And when Italy won the seat in your Paris conference, then Cavour brilliantly highlighted the condition of those states in Italy which were under the rule of Austria, and thus made the Italian question a European question, and thus won the support of other European powers in the case of this Sardinia-Austrian war. And because of this support, Sardinia could defeat Austria in Sardinia-Austrian War of 1859. And who supported? Of course, France supported Sardinia in this. and with this French support she could easily defeat your Austria and got the region of Lombardy. याद होगा 1815 कांग्रेस वियना में दो एरियाज हैं which were given to Austria, Lombardy and Venetia. Lombardy and Venetia, the northern states, the two northern states of your Italy, two northern Italian states you can say. So Lombardy was taken back from Austria in 1859 when Sardinia defeated Austria with the support of France, and that was made possible because of the diplomatic skills of Cavour. That you need to highlight, that you need to discuss with example of your Austria-Sardinian War of 1859. Cavour हो गया, Mazzini हो गया, and third was your Garibaldi. Garibaldi, he is regarded as the sword of the movement, and he, along with his volunteer army of 1,000 red shirts, he went to your the region of your southern Italy and Sicily, primarily the region of Sicily. The people of Sicily called him over there. He won that region of Sicily and Naples also, and gave it to the king of Sardinia, and thus played a very prominent role in this unification of Italy. That is your role of Garibaldi, which you need to discuss, and at the end you should highlight that even the support of your Victor Emmanuel II, who was the king of Italy or king of Sardinia, under whose leadership this whole process was completed. So with this, the question number 4, you have means what to write and how to write, introduction, then body part, all the things we have discussed. Then let's see your question number 4th we have seen. 5th, let's see 5th. We find similarities between the philosophy of German and Italian fascism, but there are also outstanding differences between them. Let's see this topic in detail. This whole fascism, this Nazism and fascism. Nazism को और क्या कहते हैं? There is one more term used for this, that is your National Socialism. So if you get this term also in your examination, you should know that it is Nazism only the question is talking about. We know after your First World War or post First World War, we saw a very unethical treaty, immoral treaty, that is the Treaty of Versailles, which was signed with the Germany. And overall also the war impact was negative all over the Europe. So the economic condition after war hota kya hai? After war, both in Italy and your Germany, we have liberal government, democratic government aa jati hai, but the problems in the post World War period could not be solved by those liberal governments. So एक तरफ we have liberal government means democracy, democratic government है. दूसरी तरफ there is a rise of socialism or communism. You can say 1917 में Russian Revolution आया. Russian Revolution का impact all over the world can be felt, and therefore post 1917 we see the rise of socialist forces throughout the world, and therefore the second you can say this rise of your socialist forces. And this period when these two things were rising, these two could not solve, or especially when this liberal government was established, they could not solve the problem of your this post World War period, that is the economic as well as the social problems created due to the war, and therefore they were criticized by both socialist as well as authoritarian government, authoritarian people. And this authoritarian people are nothing but the totalitarians in the term of Nazism and Fascism. Okay. And of course, in Japan, you have military fascism or a totalitarian form of government in Japan. And therefore, by your 1926 में इटली में फासिज्म आ जाता है और 1930s में 32 में in Germany we have this Nazism or National Socialism under the leadership of Hitler. But this is the background which I have just told you ki why or in which background they emerged. And UPSC have asked a question in GS. GS में आया था वो, but it's related. It's a very important one, and it's related to this topic only. That between the period of two world wars, the the democratic government faced several challenges. तो उन challenges में क्या है? Democratic government faced several challenges in the form of fascism, Nazism, military fascism of Japan, and एक और event हुआ था, that is your depression, Great Depression of 1929. That is for GS. उस क्वेश्चन को छोड़ते हैं. Coming back to this whole topic, this whole period of 1919 to 1939 is the period जहां पे three forces are at loggerhead with each other. One is democratic force, the other one socialist force, and the third one is totalitarian forces. And this ideological divide ultimately lead to the Second World War. That is a different thing. Coming back to this question of Nazism and Fascism, what is the पहले तो सबसे पहले बात है कि it looks like that both of them are same, but it not entirely true. It's not entirely true. We should know the similarities as well as the differences between these totalitarian ideas, two different totalitarian ideas, and we also use the word counter revolutionary ideas against revolution, that is counter revolutionary ideas. So let's see fascism. सबसे पहले ये आया था, तो fascism, what are the principles of fascism? Principles of fascism क्या है? So the first one is your totalitarianism, realism. Totalitarianism का मतलब क्या है? That it is the state which is supreme. State से ऊपर कुछ नहीं है. Nothing outside a state, nothing against a state. That is this totalitarianism means. And therefore, everyone should work for this state. Got it? This is the first principle of fascism. Second principle in fascism is your nationalism, or nationalism versus in or against, I would use the word against, internationalism. Benito Mussolini, who is the leader in Italy under whose this fascism developed, he argued that state is the best form of society ever evolved by human race. A state or a nation, I would say nation, is the best form of society that have evolved in this or evolved by this human race, and therefore we should work to make this nation strong. अपने nation को strong बनाना है, that is the main focus. And how we can do it? By increasing our military power, by achieving the self-sufficiency, and therefore nationalism or the work for a nation, making the nation strong, is the main motto of or motive of your fascist government. So nationalism against internationalism is again a second feature. Third, it is idealism. Idealism. Ideal hai, and Mussolini argues that it is not the resources of the nation which makes it strong, but the will of the nation which made strong, which make it strong. So resource nahi, it is the will of the nation, that is will of the people, will of the people which make it strong. So it's an ideal kind of thing, but it created a sense of energy among the masses. And one more feature of your this fascism after this idealism, one more feature of this fascism is romanticism. And romanticism, it's more driven by those ideologies like Hegel's and all. Hegel, who believed that a state is supreme and we should sacrifice everything for that. So similarly, this romanticism of your fascism also believed that we should sacrifice ourselves for the betterment of the state. So that sacrificing character is the major thing or feature of your fascism also. Although not directly linked to fascism or this whole question, but you, in your modern India also, we see the idea of this whole revolutionary, first stage of revolutionaries were this whole concept of, was based on the concept of sacrifice. We should sacrifice our means our life for this motherland. And Aurobindo even argued that as mother goddess needs sacrifices, it was a view of Aurobindo, that as we give sacrifices to the mother goddesses, so similarly we should give sacrifice of our life to the motherland, that is your India. So not directly linked, but fir bhi, just to remember, you can recall this point, that a romanticism, that is your self means sacrificing character, was also a feature of your fascism. Then next one, रोमांटिसिज्म के बाद और कुछ फासिज्म के फीचर में अगर हम देखें तो वी कैन हैव दिस ऑफ कोर्स मिलिट्री, दिस military strength we know. So militarism means increasing the military power of the state so that we can make our nation strong. That is a characteristic feature of fascism. Okay, done. And but the last one is the corporate state. Corporate state is one of the most characteristic feature or important feature of your this fascist state, and here it differs with your this national socialism of Hitler also. तो corporate state क्या है? Since it is a state, means political unit की बात कर रहे हैं, corporate it is more economic. So just think a state or the political system which is based on the economic system or have an economic base. To make it more clear, just think of a state system where a kind of democratic system. यहाँ पे who is represented in the government, or the minister who is a part of the government, he is representing what? He is representing your this geographical region. He is not participating in the government as a producer. Please remember this thing, and therefore this whole concept of corporate state. Please see, state means the government. Here in fascism, the people in state are representative of economy, that is corporate, that is they are represented as producers in the state system. Please be clear about that. Okay, so this is the basis of corporate state, and इसके और भी features हैं. Of course, again, everyone should work for all the capitalists also. They should work for the development of the state. Although the capitalist system exists in Italy, but it is not above the state, in the sense that if a state wants to capture it, or if it wants to take the control of that system, it can do that. A state can do that. That is also part of your corporate state, system of corporate state. So these are a basic description about your whole idea of fascism we have seen. After this, let's see your Nazism. And in this we, of course, what are the features? Let's see the features, then similarity or differences पे आएंगे. So first feature, of course, totalitarianism. Totalitarianism. Second feature, similar to this, nationalism. Third feature, similar to this, idealism, romanticism. Fourth feature or fourth, fifth, that feature is your militarism, and but there is no corporate state. Please remember, there is no corporate state. तो यहां तक तो सब कुछ similar था. Now comes the theory of race, theory of supremacy of race, supremacy of race. And here we see this Hitler believed that the accomplishments of men or the mental qualities of men are decided by blood and nothing else. And he even believed that there is only one race in this whole world which has worked for the development of your human civilization, and that is the Aryan race. Aryan race. So he believed in this supremacy of Aryan race and argued that all the development which have occurred in world is because of this race. So that kind of supremacy of Aryan race or the theory of race was not there in your fascism. Then next point, the policy of blood and soil. Hitler believed in this or gave this policy of blood and soil. Here the soil represents your peasants or agriculture. In his Nazism, we have a special emphasis on the peasants and the rural society. That kind of thing was not there in your fascism. Na? So these are the major principles of your Nazism. And by reading these two things, you can easily compare and write down the similarities as well as differences of your fascism and Nazism and easily deal with the fifth question. I hope it's clear. Now coming back, question number 6. Question number 6. It's not. Let me check. Yeah, it's there now. As regards to the causes of Russian Revolution, they were in many respects analogous to those which produced the French Revolution. This kind of comparative questions, na, comparison between two different events or two different events is a good or is, you can say, an important area which UPSC picks up. So you should also do a comparison between all the revolutions which you read, say American Revolution, French Revolution, Russian Revolution, जितने भी revolution पढ़ रहे हो तो try to compare them in their consequences, in their causes, all of that, because UPSC loves this comparative study, and definitely it asks those kind of questions just to see how not only well prepared but how how analytical you are. Means it's just not right like reading notes. You need to compare. You can only have a good comparison if you have an analytical skill. UPSC picks these areas because of that, and therefore this kind of question is a very important one which you should prepare. Now coming back to the question, it's just a comparison between your Russian Revolution and French Revolution causes. So causes of Russian Revolution and your French Revolution. French Revolution के causes क्या थे? And the main area of discussion should be the Russian Revolution, and you should show its comparison with your Russian Revolution. It don't do otherwise. The question is primarily related to Russian Revolution and then show its comparison with your Russian French Revolution. Say in causes में पहला एरिया क्या होता है? कभी भी causes हम बात करेंगे तो political, social, economic and intellectual. Causes in political domain, economic domain, social domain and intellectual domain, और कुछ नहीं हो सकता इसके अलावा. So let's see political condition. दोनों जगह तो autocratic monarchy थी ना, तो evils of monarchy, give the examples also. Without examples this point is not complete. Give the example Louis 15, Louis 16 in your France, and यहाँ कौन थे? यहाँ czars. So give that example, and even mention the in Russian case we even mention the name of Tsarina and Rasputin, under whose influence your Tsar was an inefficient administrator or ruler. Okay, so that you need to mention. Evils. Political हो गया. Political के बाद और क्या आता है? Political में even Russian में you can add more point, like which is not similar to your France, इसलिए हम बाद में लिखेंगे in your last section of your answer before concluding remarks, and that will be your policy of Russification. That kind of policy was never implied or never adopted by your French ruler. Got it? Then political के बाद social comparison क्या है? रशिया से स्टार्ट करोगे. रशिया में the society was divided into two groups, aristocrats and the commoners. Aristocrats were the people who have everything under their control. Land hai, money hai, everything is under their control. And the commoners, they are the poor and small middle class tha. Uske alawa to they were mainly peasants and they were poor. So there was a social inequality, and then compare it with the the French condition in 18th century, where the society was divided into three: first estate, second estate, third state. First and second estate controlled all the resources as well as were rich, and they were exempted from taxes, whereas the third estate, which was the largest population or comprised the largest section of the population, was feeling all the heat of the you can say taxation, as well as they did not have any opportunity for them. So that kind of comparison you can give, and this resulted into the revolution of your Russia in 1917. Third, social हो गया. Economic में economic condition is not that much similar we can say, because in your French region or this French Revolution, the economic factor was a major factor which actually precipitated this movement. So economic factor नहीं कहेंगे, we will say participation in this economic factor. What we can say कि it was the participation in the First World War which brought economic misery, food shortages in regions, in cities and towns, which ultimately led to the riots and your riot-like situation, and led to this February Revolution of 1917. Not October Revolution, February Revolution of 1917. Then fourth, intellectual. Yes, we have intellectual. Yes, we have the similarities. यहाँ पे कौन-कौन है? In your Russia, we have Tolstoy, we have you can even Karl Marx ideas of your scientific socialism, and all these ideas, or Teganov, all these scholars, their ideas created the seeds of, you can say, revolution, or established the seeds of revolution into the minds of the people. Similarly, similar to the condition where we have this ideas of Voltaire, Montesquieu and your Rousseau, which sowed the seeds of revolution in the French people. So that kind of comparison you can give for intellectual one also. But the question, coming back to the question क्या कहता था? Demand of the question was with the French Revolution, discuss. Command word is discuss. So after writing this similarity, we will also pinpoint the other, or you can say unique points which caused Russian Revolution. Say the policy of Russification, say the defeat in First World War. Defeat in First World War aroused an anti-government feeling. Defeat in the battles of First World War, I would say, created or aroused an anti-government feeling in the masses, which ultimately led to this revolution. So that also you need to write in the later half of the question, or the end portion of the question. Then the last question is related to the Treaty of Versailles, and it says the moral defects of the treaty are no more glaring than the practical. Moral defects of the treaty are no more glaring than the practical, means this treaty has both moral and practical defects that you need to discuss upon. So when I'm saying both practical and moral, moral क्यों है? It was a forced treaty, first of all. Second, Germany की बात है, of course, German was held responsible for this war, and therefore they were punished to the highest. Why this thing was done? Because the policy, or you can say the three big powers who were dictating the terms at this treaty, among those three, two primarily, France and Britain, they wanted, or they had a revengeful mind against Germany, and with that kind of mentality, that kind of you can say aim, they participated in this peace conference, and therefore never implemented the idea of your Woodrow Wilson's 14 points. Only 3 ideas were implemented, rest were ignored. So that was also a cause. Then it's a kind of immorality which you will highlight. Then coming to the practical approach, practical aspect. Practical क्या है कि you are imposing war indemnity, heavy war indemnity, but at the same time you are snatching the resourceful regions from Germany. Saar region, okay, Silesia was given to Poland, and Saar region was under the control of France. So these were resourceful region. किसी के पास अगर resource नहीं है, how they can use, how they can have this economic growth, and unless and until वहाँ economic growth, economic regeneration नहीं होगा, how they will be able to pay your money. So because of that, it is impractical. It is not practical. उसके अलावा immoral में भी हम लिख सकते हैं इसी point को कि the war indemnity was very, very high because it was driven by the revengeful tendency of your Britain and France. Then impractical में we can write that they disarmament, this whole thing of disarmament was done for Germany only, and the smaller regions around Germany were doing armament. So how it is practically possible that a region, a nation which has such a vast or such a you can say a strong background or a strong history will accept the demilitarization or disarmament when the neighboring nations are moving on the opposite path? So it was impractical. It was not going to be followed, and this led to the this, you can say, under this Hitler we see militarization and all of Germany. So it was an impractical thing to think of. Immorality में हम ये लिख सकते हैं, principle of self-determination was only followed for was not followed in your totality. Then mandatory system was only followed for the colonies of the losing powers. Why not it was followed for the colonies of the winning powers? क्योंकि mandatory system तो फिर should be done for all the colonies ना. If you are saying कि these colonies should be ruled by a governor, the winning powers governor, but under the mandate of League of Nations. So do it for your other colonies also. So that is the moral defect of the treaty. So moral and practical दोनों ही defect the treaty में, and therefore in conclusion you will write that it became the cause of or sowed the seeds of the Second World War, gave the reasons or prepared the condition for the rise of your fascist and Nazist forces in Italy and Germany. With this, your question number 7 is completed, and with this I'll also wrap up this discussion. And I hope this will help you. This topic of Nazism, fascism और totalitarian government background पे हमेशा ध्यान रखा करो, कहाँ develop हो रहा है. Also focus on the keywords, the subject language. Okay, always focus on those keywords, those concepts, without which your answer won't be complete. And with this, I wrap up this discussion. Thank you.